Hello, and welcome back to Learn the Bible in a Year. For our Old Testament reading today, we're jumping into the prophets. We're in 1st and 2nd Amos. We're moving from the kings to the prophets now, and Amos is one of the earliest writing prophets. He's not from a prophetic family or school, which is kind of odd. He tells us himself that he was a shepherd and a dresser of sycamore fig trees from Tokeah, a small town in Judah. God called him and sent him north to preach to the kingdom of Israel during the reign of Jeroboam II, when both Israel and Judah were enjoying a period of relative prosperity and military strength. Amos begins with a series of oracles against the surrounding nations. Each oracle opens with the same formula. For 3 sins of insert nation, even for 4 I will not relent. The number isn't meant to be taken literally, it's a way of saying the cup of judgment is full and overflowing. Now he makes oracles against the following nations: Damascus, Gaza, Tyre, Edom, Ammon, and Moab. Now, the people of Israel that are listening to Amos would likely have been nodding along with each one of the condemnations that he just laid out. Yes, judge them, they deserve it. They're waiting for Amos to condemn their enemies. Well, then Amos turns to Judah. Same type of formula. Judah is condemned for rejecting the law of the Lord and not keeping his decrees, for being led astray by false gods their ancestors followed. And then, and this is the real slam the hammer moment, he pivots to Israel. Same formula, and the list of offenses is actually longer and more specific. They sell the innocent for silver and the needy for a pair of sandals. They trample on the heads of the poor and deny justice to the oppressed. A father and son use the same girl, profaning God's holy name. They lie down beside every altar on garments taken in pledge. They drink wine in the house of their God that was brought with fines they imposed. When I said gods just now, I used lowercase god, they're false idol gods. Now God, capital G God, reminds them of everything he did for them, bringing them out of Egypt, leading them through the wilderness, driving out the Amorites before them, raising up prophets and the Nazarites from among them. And they silenced the prophets and commanded the Nazarites to drink wine. Kind of, rebellious. That's the word that's coming to mind. More on Amos tomorrow. Can't wait for that. All right, now jumping into our New Testament reading, some context here. Paul has been systematically dismantling every claim to moral superiority. He's argued that Gentiles are without excuse before God, that Jews who have had the law but break it are in no better position. Now he addresses the Jewish persons specifically. You call yourself a Jew, Paul says. You rely on the law, you know God's will, you are convinced that you are a guide for the blind, a light for those in the darkness, an instructor of the foolish, a teacher of little children. You have in the law the embodiment of knowledge and truth. But do you practice what you preach? You who tell others not to steal, do you steal? You who say not to commit adultery, do you commit adultery? You who harbor idols, do you rob temples? You who boast in the law, do you dishonor God by breaking the law? Because you, Paul quotes, God's name is blasphemed among the Gentiles. Paul then addresses a big conversation back then, which is circumcision. The physical mark of the covenant is circumcision. That was part of the old covenant. Circumcision has value, Paul would agree, if you observe the law. But if you break the law, your circumcision has become uncircumcision, meaning if you break the covenant, then the sign of the covenant, which is circumcision, doesn't really mean a whole lot. If someone who is not circumcised keeps the law's requirements, won't that person be regarded as though they were circumcised? Paul is making the point that this whole circumcision thing is not about what we look like. It's about what we actually do, what's actually inside of our heart. He uses the phrase here, the real circumcision is the circumcision of the heart by the Spirit. It's not by some written code. Now, the question of the Jewish people might be, well, then what advantage is there of being Jewish? What value is there in circumcision? And Paul's answer is much in every way. First of all, the Jewish people were entrusted with the very words of God. And Paul goes on to address some possible objections. What if some, meaning some Jews, were unfaithful? Does their unfaithfulness nullify God's faithfulness? Paul says, nope, absolutely not. Let God be true and every human being be a liar, is what he says. Paul anticipates another objection. If our unrighteousness brings out God's righteousness more clearly, is God unjust to bring wrath on us? He answers empathetically, certainly not. If that were so, how could God judge the world? He also dismisses the idea that one should do evil so that good may be a result. That kind of reasoning, he says, is condemned. Paul's going to go on this type of topic a little bit more, but we're going to talk about that tomorrow. All right, we're going to finish up today by reading Proverbs 17, verses 5 through 14, and it goes like this. Whoever mocks the poor shows contempt for their maker. Whoever gloats over disaster will not go unpunished. Children's children are crowned to the aged, and parents are the pride of their children. Eloquent lips are unsuited to a godless fool. How much worse lying lips to a ruler? A bribe is seen as a charm by the one who gives it. They think success will come at every turn. Whoever would foster love covers over an offense, but whoever repeats the matter separates close friends. A rebuke impresses a discerning person more than 100 lashes a fool. Evildoers foster rebellion against God. The messengers of death will be sent against them. Better to meet a bear robbed of her cubs than a fool bent on folly. Evil will never leave the house of the one who pays back evil for good. Starting a quarrel is like breaching a dam, so drop the matter before a dispute breaks out. Alrighty, that is the episode for today, and I will see all of you cool cats again here tomorrow.